Okay, well, hello everybody. After a little bit of technical difficulties, we are live right now. I would love to welcome you to our Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month Spotlight with none other than the amazing Mr. Gary Yamashita. How are you, Gary?
Doing well, Priscilla. Good to see you.
So good to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to let us dig a little bit deeper into who you are.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So before we start, I'm going to share your bio with everybody. So Gary, you are currently the CEO of Sakura Square and Executive Director of Sakura Foundation. And you are working as on the project management team for the redevelopment of Sakura Square. And I'm excited to hear more about that project. Your background includes over 40 years of experience in the real estate and banking industries, specializing in real estate valuation, finance, and project management. You are a native of Colorado and very active in the Japanese American and Greater Denver communities. And you had mentioned that you are a third generation Japanese American.
Right.
In 2017, you were selected as part of the US Japan Council's Japanese American Leadership Delegation, which provided a select group of Japanese American leaders from across the United States to travel to Japan to engage with Japanese leaders in business, government, academic, and nonprofit sectors. You have contributed considerable time to the Downtown Denver Partnership, Rose Community Foundation, and St. Francis Center as part of the Downtown Denver Partnership. You currently serve on the panel for diversity, inclusivity, and equity. And so I'm going to name a couple of these committees that you have been involved in. Just a short list. So Downtown Denver Partnership, St. Francis Center, Board of Directors, Rose Community, U.S. Japan Council, U.S. Japan Council, Japanese American Leadership Delegation, Mile High Chapter of JACL, which thank you, they have been big supporters of AAPI over the years. Let's see, Japanese American Community Graduation Program, Scholarship Chairperson, Tri-State Denver Buddhist Temple, past president and board member. You are on the endowment committee as vice chairperson. You are also on several grant program committees as the chairperson. Downtown Denver Leadership Program, Japanese American National Museum member, Japan America Society of Colorado member. Wow, you're part of the Veterans Heritage, Nisei Veterans Heritage Foundation member, Asian Chamber of Commerce member, but your most important job is husband to Deb and father to 3 adult children. And in your spare time, you enjoy fly fishing, hunting, biking, and volunteering in the community. So you are like a real life Superman.
I don't know about Superman, but I love the outdoors and I love my community. So it's not work when it's something you love, right?
Absolutely. And what better place than Colorado to do all of these things, like especially fly fishing. That's fun.
Yeah, it's my passion. In fact, headed out tomorrow.
Awesome. I mean, we have this great 3-day weekend coming up. And so tell us a little bit of your history. Were you born in Denver?
I was born in Denver, Colorado. I'm a native, but there was a 10-year period where I previously worked for a bank. And during that 10-year period, I relocated to Southern California and from there to Washington, D.C. and from there to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I was gone from Colorado for 10 years. And it was really a good opportunity in my banking career. And at the time, I have to tell you, my wife, Deb, and 3 kids, in 10 years, relocating clear across the country, back and forth, and forth. At the time, I have to tell you, Priscilla, that even though it was very good for my career, I felt really guilty uprooting the kids from their schools and all. But now looking back at it in retrospect, the kids had so much exposure to new environments, new places. Just think about being, 30 minutes from Washington, D.C., all the Smithsonian, museums. And as a result of that, I'm so proud of my three children, my adult children. They are very independent. They adapt well in new environments. I mean, you had to, right? They're the new kid in school all the time. And so, they've really uh, gained some good life skills as a result of all the relocation. So again, like I said, I felt guilty, but really was very, very valuable for them in growing up.
Do you have three boys or?
No, it's oldest daughter, and then the son, and a younger daughter.
Oh,
They're
okay. So,
all they're the adults. They're all in the 30 plus. No grandkids yet. Still waiting for my first grandkid. Yeah.
oh, are you putting pressure on that? Is that the typical like
Well,
pressure?
only one's married, so and I've talked to you about her. She's a elementary school teacher. In fact, she has taught previously in Denver Public Schools, and I think they're kind of pursuing their career right now. But I have hope at sometime soon might have a grandchild.
Okay, we're gonna hope for you, send you good vibes on that too.
Right.
So your career in banking and real estate, that I'm sure helped prepare you for the enormous job that you're doing Sakura Foundation.
It really has, Priscilla. I didn't know it at the time, but the my involvement in real estate, finance, project management, asset management, really translates well into my role at Sakura Square, where I not only oversee the operations of Sakura Square, but the redevelopment of Sakura Square. And that we're really very excited about the redevelopment. If I could just take a moment to explain that. So we're very busy right now with planning and meetings. In fact, I've already had two Zoom meetings with Tokyo this week. So the planning portion of the redevelopment is ongoing, and it's very real. We're still probably about several years away from breaking ground, actually starting construction. But the vision for the Sakura Square redevelopment is to create a project that is a Japanese cultural heritage and community center. So it will, the centerpiece of the redevelopment will be a new Buddhist temple. Tri-State Denver Buddhist Temple will have a new temple. We will have a new community center, which is very exciting. And then beyond that, it will be a commercial development, but with heavily influenced with Japanese culture and community. And so, the new Sakura Square, or the redeveloped Sakura Square, will be a place for not only the Japanese community, but the greater Asian community and the greater metro community, all people that either love Japan, have an interest or a curiosity in Japan. They can come to Sakura Square, uh, take classes at the cultural center, worship at the temple, partake uh, at several of the very, we're very excited about the food piece, right? I mean, uh, food and culture kind of go together. I mean, the Sakura Square will be the hub for all things Japanese. So that's the exciting part about my job, is that I'm able to use the experience that I gained previously in my banking experience and translate it into this redevelopment. And as you could tell by reading my bio previously, I really care about the community, and for me to be able to be involved and lead the redevelopment of Sakura Square is a dream come true. It truly is. And as I mentioned earlier, it's not a job. It doesn't. When I wake up every morning, and well, previously when I went to the office, it didn't feel like I was going to work, because it's something that I love, and I know I'm giving back to the community. So I'm just so excited about it, and I hope that our community is excited about the prospect of a Japanese center that celebrates our rich history and our rich story in Denver.
I can feel your joy emoting through the computer. Um, for those of us who've had the privilege of going to Japan and experiencing Japan, it is really exciting to know that there's going to be a real piece of that here in Denver where we can go anytime. If anybody hasn't been to Japan, I would highly encourage you to make that trip because I grew up in Korea. My mother was born in Korea, even though my grandfather's Japanese. During that time, Japan had occupation of Korea. I was very familiar with Korean culture, and I had assumed that it would be very similar to go to Japan, but I was surprised that Japan is very different from Korea. And so I felt so much closer to my heritage and I understood a lot more and I embraced that. And so I'm really excited for the project that you guys are doing. How are you getting funding? I mean, are people able to donate or are you getting funding from the Japanese government? How does that work?
Well, we're working hand in hand with the Tri-State Denver Buddhist Temple. There are two owners of the block. Tri-State Denver Buddhist Temple owns the section of property that they're located on, and then there's the 3/4 of the block, which is Sakura Square LLC, and we're working together as one entity, working with a development partner, and the financing of the property will come as a result of some sale of the land. In addition to that, the development partners bringing equity and capital to the project as well. What's exciting is that we're working with multiple development partners that located here in Denver and located in Japan as well. So it brings the best of both worlds of a local developer that is familiar with our marketplace in Denver, but having a developer in Japan that is aware of the cultural aspects of what we're trying to achieve in our project. So, we're just so excited about that combination of the team and working the temple and Sakura Square working together with them. We just feel it's a perfect match at this point.
So you mentioned food, you mentioned the temple and cultural experiences. Is there going to be space for a garden in there
Oh,
somewhere?
absolutely,
Oh,
absolutely.
yes.
A key to the project, okay, and I had that. We had a board meeting last night, and as I was explaining to our board members of the Sakura Foundation, the key to the project is if all we achieve is just a new temple and a new cultural center, and then there's a couple of office buildings there, that is not, that's not what we're striving for. We're looking for a block that is cohesive, that blends with the temple and the cultural center, and highlights our heritage and community. We are seeking to create a place. We continue to use the term placemaking. Uh, One of our board members, Charles Ozaki, I think you interviewed him previously. Uh, he used the word Sakura Square has to have a soul. Okay, so that
Mm.
gives you a sense of, this is not just another downtown block. It's a block that not only highlights our Japanese, heritage and culture, but promotes it into the future as well. And that's the key to this. The redevelopment of Sakura Square is absolutely we will honor our ancestors and our heritage and culture because that's who we are. That's where we came from. But in addition to that, moving forward, it's important that we create new culture and new traditions for future generations. And that's the exciting part is the balance of, the past, the present, and the future in terms of creating the new Sakura Square. And as I mentioned, it's not just for our Japanese community, it's for the greater metro community, for all people to enjoy Japanese culture and heritage. So again, very exciting.
That statement, yeah, it needs to have a soul. It's so indicative of the Japanese culture because everything has a meaning, everything has a purpose. And when you go to the gardens or when you look at a design, there's a purpose for everything. There's no waste.
That's right. That's right. So you mentioned the garden. So, in terms of the placemaking, we currently have a memorial. It's not a memorial garden, but it's a garden that highlights three individuals. Minoru Yasui, Ralph Carr, and Reverend Tamai. Absolutely, that we will have some semblance of that, but we hope that the entire block. Someone asked, "Will you have a museum at Sakura Square?" And my response was, well, not so much a museum in the traditional sense, but the whole block will be a museum. We're hoping to create like a walking tour of the block and little memorials. And, we're not quite sure how we're going to integrate technology, but you stop at a place like if you were to stop in front of Pacific Mercantile. I mean, Pacific Mercantile is one of our original tenants. When we opened in the early 70s, they opened with us. So they're a big part of our history. So we would hope that there would be some kind of memorial there commemorating, what Pacific Mercantile represents. Hopefully we can do it with technology, but the entire block would be a tribute to our community and our heritage. So the entire block would be a museum per se.
Like a sake museum. I went to one of those in Japan.
Yeah.
And then after this museum tour, like I learned a lot about rice. I
Yeah.
learned a lot about rice. And, I think that's educational.
Well, when I went to Japan as part of the Japanese American leadership delegation, we toured a city called Kanazawa, a city rich with culture and history. One of our tours was a tour of a 400-year-old sake brewery. Think about it, 400 years old. And it was just amazing to, just learn about the history of that particular brewery, distillery, and just learn about, the history of sake in general. Was pretty amazing.
So going back a couple of generations, how did your family make their way to the United States?
Sure. Okay. Um, Both my parents are were born in San Pedro, California, so U.S. citizens. They didn't know each other at the time. They didn't meet until several decades later, 20 some years later. But my dad, when he was 5 years old, went back to Japan with the family to be educated and grow up in Japan. And my mother, at 8 months old, did the same, went back to Japan to basically grow up. And upon graduation from high school, my father, at 18 years old, returned back to the United States. And little did he know, it was, literally shortly before Pearl Harbor and, the start of the war with, Japan. So he returned at 18 and returned back to California. And his parents, which would be my grandparents and, my father, opened a restaurant in San Pedro, California. And again, because the war broke out, they lost the property, they lost the restaurant, and were, imprisoned in concentration camps. My father was in Manzanar camp, and then my after the war, my father and the family tried to reestablish what they had, but obviously they'd lost their restaurant, all of their property. So they came back. They came to Colorado because of Governor Ralph Carr. And I know several people have talked to you previously about Governor Ralph Carr. At the time, took such a courageous stance for our Japanese community that he said, "You've done nothing wrong. You are welcome to come to Colorado. Please come to Colorado." That's why my father and the family came to Colorado. Now, again, that was at tremendous sacrifice to Governor Carr's political career because that was not a popular stance. And as a result, he sacrificed his political career for the civil rights of our community. So we're very beholding to him. And so my mother returned back to the United States when she was about 20 years old. And so, my father and mother met, uh, married, and came to Colorado, and they opened a restaurant in Denver, Colorado. It just so happened to be located directly across the street from Sakura Square. Uh, and so I've grown up being a part of Sakura Square pretty much all my life because uh, when my parents would open the restaurant, it was a small cafe. The kids would come and we'd run around the neighborhood, and basically we didn't know it was not safe there. I mean, back in the day, that lower downtown area was not the safest part of town. But I've just grown up in Sakura Square. It's a part of me. I love the area, and so when I had the opportunity to take the position of CEO of Sakura Square, it was the dream job in
Mm,
that I knew. Well, first of all, I love Sakura Square, but I knew also that I had the background and skill set to be able to help Sakura Square redevelop into the future. And I thought to myself, wow, there are few opportunities in a person's career where you can give back to your community and really make a difference. And so, I had the opportunity. I interviewed for the position. I got the position, and I just feel so fortunate that I'm involved in the Soccer Square redevelopment. The board entrusts me to lead the effort, and that effort is moving forward. We're very fortunate that it's that things are moving forward. One thing I want to share with you about the significance of Sakura Square, Priscilla, is that after the war and all of the prisoners that were released from uh, the the concentration camps, let's say, tell it as it is, they were concentration camps. Uh, Many came to Colorado, and because of Governor Ralph Carr, but there were few places that our community could locate because the general public did not want Japanese in their communities. So it was the lower downtown area, which at that time after the war was really Skid Row. I mean, old bars and brothels and warehouses uh, was not the best part of town. That's, kind of along Larimer Street and what we know is lower downtown Denver. But our community made the best of a tough situation, and the area became thriving with businesses and shops and residences and hotels and all, and became our little Japantown, if you will. It was probably a 9 or 12 block square area, and it was thriving. And in the 1960s, there was an urban redevelopment that wanted to clean up the blight of lower downtown area. And so as a result, that entire lower downtown area where our community had established was basically condemned and redeveloped. And in the path of that redevelopment was Sakura Square. Uh, and it would have forced the temple to have to relocate and forced Sakura Square to have to sell the property. Well, fortunately, several members of the community, including the temple, had the foresight that they wanted to maintain that block. So they purchased the property. Back then, Priscilla, they purchased the property for $188,000. Okay,
wow.
today that's a drop in the bucket, but
Mhm.
think about it back then. I mean, it was the worst part of town. $188,000 for uh, small business owners. None of these people were developers. It was all the money in the world. So it was at tremendous risk. But fast forward to where we are now, the lower downtown area has transformed from some of the worst real estate in Denver to some of the most desirable real estate. So the significance of Sakura Square is that it is what remains of a once thriving Japanese Japanese American community. It's what we have left, and so why it's important that we maintain that. We take this precious gift that our ancestors gave us, and it's my generation's responsibility to take that gift and preserve it and enhance it for future generations. And that's what the redevelopment is about. Enhancing it for future generations.
Wow. You are the ambassador of this work to carry on. And I'm looking forward to having the best sushi of my life at Sakura Square. When are you guys anticipating that it will be ready?
It's the timeline is still extended. We're probably hopefully about 3 years off from breaking ground. So that's the start of the project. Okay.
Okay.
And we're looking at probably, several years after that for various phases of the project. So, we're still 5 or 6 years away from the project, being anywhere near complete, but which sounds like a long time to you and I, right? But in development terms,
Mm.
that's just a blip in time. It literally is a blip in time. So uh, I will treat you to sushi when
Yay!
they open at the grand opening. Okay, would be my pleasure. But yeah, so it's the project will consist of, it'll be kind of a mixed use project. There'll be office buildings, residential, retail, food, as I mentioned. Okay. And, and so again, with the heavy influence of Japanese culture and community, that's what we're striving for. So, again, it sounds like a long time, but it'll be, you'll blink and before you know it, the grand opening will be happening.
Sure. Yeah. So in the meantime, we want to support Sakura Foundation. The Cherry Blossom Festival is a fundraiser for you. What are there other fundraisers you do?
Well, the Sakura Foundation, which is, the nonprofit arm of Sakura Square, we do a lot of cultural programming. At this place in time, there will be a major fundraising effort to, to get this project kickstarted, and that's still a little ways off. And we would hope that our community would support us in that effort. It's this block is for, as I mentioned, our Japanese community, our Asian community, our greater community. So we would hope that we would get great support, from a diverse, demographic. And the other thing that I want to mention is that I love Denver. I was born in Denver. I was raised in Denver, and we have it's pretty diverse, but we don't really have ethnic projects or centers. I mean, for example, I mean, you do have a lot of ethnic, businesses along South Federal there, but so Sakura Square, we hope will challenge the rest of Denver and downtown Denver, become more diverse and inclusive, with and be just challenging. We have great support. Mayor Hancock is a friend of Sakura Square. He's on board with our project. Governor Polis is aware of what we're doing. The Downtown Denver Partnership, Office of Economic Development, Eric Horaga. They're all very supportive of what we're trying to do, and they are very excited about the prospect of having a cultural center right in the middle of downtown Denver. So it's quite, not only quite exciting for our community, but the rest of downtown, the government officials, the rest of downtown is very excited as well.
Well, we want to encourage everybody to patronize the Mercantile because they have great food and some of the best rice. I have to say, some of the best rice I've ever tasted, they sell at the Mercantile. Um,
Can I put in a plug for them, Priscilla?
sure, yeah.
Okay. Uh, this is Pacific Mercantile's 75th anniversary year.
Wow.
Yeah, that's huge, right? That's a
Yeah.
huge milestone. And so, yes, thank you for, encouraging our community to support them. We'll be doing some mini celebrations here from this point on, some articles in Asian Avenue and some other things that will be coming up. We had planned a bigger event, but with the, just as, social distancing and sheltering in place, we're going to have to take a different approach to celebrating Pacific. But again, I mean, I wanted to bring that up because again, as I mentioned, Pacific Mercantile, when we opened our doors at Sakura Square, they opened their doors with us at Sakura Square. They had been at a previous location previously.
Hmm.
But when Sakura Square opened, they opened with us as well. So we want to promote this as much as we can.
Okay, so is there anything I missed? What, did I miss anything that you want to share? Because I'm taking advantage of this time with you, Gary.
Well, it's just that, I think Sakura Square represents an important part of not only the Japanese history in Colorado, but the Asian history. And, as we're taking this month to celebrate Asian history, I think it's important uh, to celebrate not only what we've done, but also move things forward. And so we would hope that we would get the support of, as I mentioned, the greater community in the redevelopment of Sakura Square. There'll be opportunities in the future for us to reach out to the greater community to get input on Sakura Square. And so, that'll be an opportunity. But, I think a good place to just kind of wrap up with this would be, I think for all of us, our heritage and culture is something that we should cherish and we should hold on to. And it's easily lost. Okay. It just is. And if you don't make an effort to preserve it, you will lose it. That's why the redevelopment of Sakura Square is so important. If we chose not to do this, and if Sakura Square, for some reason or other, was not redeveloped, what would be left as a community type hub for our community? So it's important that we redevelop and enhance. The other piece that I'd like to just take a moment, okay, is I mentioned the Sakura Foundation, uh, and we have an emerging leaders program. It's called the Mirai Generations Leadership Program. So Sakura Square and Sakura Foundation are not only investing in the bricks and mortar of preserving our heritage. We're also investing in the human capital of developing the next generation of leaders for our community. So we're very excited about all of the components of not only the redevelopment, but what the Sakura Foundation is doing. Priscilla, you attended our 5th anniversary celebration. Thank you for supporting us in that regard. But that kind of gave you a taste as to what we're trying to do. It's not just the business aspect of Sakura Square; it's the community and culture and heritage piece as well.
Well, I love it. And your 5th anniversary, the food, oh my gosh, was so amazing. And just, oh, the culture, everything, exquisite, and very thoughtful. And I'm so happy for you. And I'm so happy for our developing friendship and connection, because every time I see you, it's just like smiles and hugs. And, we mentioned like next, when we get a chance and we're safe, we can, reconnect and everything. And I just appreciate all the leadership that you bring to the metro area and all across Denver and the state, because there's not a lot of places that have this privilege of preserving the culture to the extent that Sakura Square and Sakura Foundation are doing.
Well, thank you, Priscilla, and thank you for having me today to speak about Sakura Square. As you can see, I'm pretty passionate. It's hard for me to keep it toned down because I am so passionate. But for me to share what Sakura Square is doing, especially the redevelopment, I really appreciate this opportunity.
So before we go, this is my favorite question. What is something that is bringing you joy during this time and putting a smile on your face?
That's a wonderful question. Obviously, we're in a period right now where things are very challenging. Uh, but I have to say, the one positive, a very important positive that has resulted from this is that I get to spend more time with my lovely bride of 41 years, Deb Yamashita. I have to admit, I work long hours. You know, I admit I'm a workaholic, okay? And typically, you know, I don't get back uh, home until about 8:30 at night. And so as a result, it's very rare that my wife and I have dinner together more than 2 to 3 times a week. Well, gosh, now it's every night. I think she's getting tired of cooking for me every night, actually. But you know, the fact that I get to spend more time and quality time with my wife, who's been my biggest supporter throughout my career, uh, that is absolutely a blessing and something that brings a smile to my face.
Well, and you two are a power couple too, because she works at she manages the apartments,
Yes,
right?
yes, exactly.
So
Even though I see her there, I mean, just kind of in passing, and you know, I mean, we try to keep that relationship pretty professional. There's not a lot of chit chat during office time, but again, just you know, I've had so much time with my wife the last 2.5, 3 months. It's been wonderful.
oh, well, this is our new normal. Maybe we can find a balance when things start to open up and we can remember the good times. So, well, Gary, please send my regards to your family and wishing you good health and get some rest and, make sure to keep the balance. And I'm excited that you're fly fishing tomorrow and enjoy the 3-day weekend. Don't work on Monday.
Yeah, I
Okay,
will.
it's Memorial Day. You got to work-life balance,
I
okay?
promise.
But we're looking forward to seeing you and thank you again.
Thank you, Priscilla. Bye.